All right, well, let's do this thing. Okay, so now let's start putting it together. So in the same way that you used shapes to make things, right? We're going to start using forms to make pictures of things. Okay, so I want you to do two drawings now, two drawings. And one will be kind of geometric in nature, right? So real strong cubes and cylinders and stuff like that. Here's just a couple of different examples. Like here's a little robot, right? Another little robot. Here's another little house. Once again, please, you could draw one just like mine. That's cool. These are just lessons. Um, but on the other hand, you could draw one that was very different than mine. You don't have to draw a house. You don't have to draw a robot. Maybe you draw a pickup truck. That'd be a good one. Okay, but what I want you to do is when you are making a drawing using the forms, I want you to go ahead and shade and shadow, okay, and follow the light source. Figure out the light source and how that would come down and create a cast shadow. All right. So on both of these, I think I did it very easy. I just had the shadow coming straight from the side down. And I think I'll concentrate with this one on doing the robot, sort of a follow along. But once again, you don't have to do the robot. It's just going to kind of be showing you some of the techniques that I used when I was making it. Okay, the second drawing that I want you to do would be something that was a bit more organic. So here is a little teddy bear, or here's a dragon, whatever. And with this one, you might challenge yourself. So this one, you see, the light is not just coming from the side, it's coming from the side and the front. This one, as a matter of fact, I've got the side coming from the top and the back, right? The top and the back, and this one coming in here from the front. Okay, anyways, and with these ones as well, I want you to go ahead and figure out which way the light source is going. Once again, you don't have to draw a teddy bear. You don't have to draw a dragon. The point was that it was something that was a little bit more organic, okay, not hard edges. Okay, so first off, we'll do one with hard edges. Okay, so now with this one, you might be able to see, pick up that I've already done sort of a pre-drawing, and I've drawn lightly, so you may or may not be able to see that well on your screen, right? But it's basically just a bunch of geometric forms, right? So starting here in the body, I made a cube. Okay, and remember the cube is just a square and a couple of parallelograms. Okay, for the sake of this one, I also wanted to see the back of it. So if I've made this cube at all right, everything should line up. So I should get something that looks a lot more like this. And that's really cool because that allows me to do a couple things. So for one, if I wanted to make the legs, I could find out, well, where's halfway down here? Well, there's an easy way of finding out what halfway is. And so if I just draw an X across there, I could find the center point. And if I find the center point, well, then I could just divide it in half. And if I divided it in half, then I could put a leg on each side, right? And get it kind of even. So here's where I'm going to start a cylinder, and here's where I'm going to start another cylinder. I'm going to finish it off down here, right? And just connect those. And that's how I get the legs. For the feet, it was just a couple more cubes, but I modified them a little bit. So let's say I were to draw um, a parallelogram here, right? And another parallelogram here, and then just connect them I would get sort of a box, right? Same thing as what's over here. I just started off with the parallelograms instead of with the square. Doesn't matter. Anyways, and then if I was to just go ahead and cut that off, you see right down here on the sides, draw the line straight across, I would get this shape that was a lot more like this here. So once again, if I was to have a cube, okay, this time I will start off with a square so I don't confuse you guys. Draw those lines back, right? At any point, I could just say like, oh, okay, I'm going to just cut that off. See, modifying the shape, bring that over, and there you go. You see, now I've got a modified, more complex sort of shape out of that. And that's how I did the feet. Okay. All right, so they weren't just a straight up box. So I've got my feet down here. All righty. Etc. Okay, so that was the legs, and I've got the feet in there already. So now the head, what I did is, once again, I found the top, right? Found the center of the top right there, right there. And so then I said, okay, I'm going to draw the base of my head right there, right? Or excuse me, the neck. So there's the bottom of a cylinder, and then here's the top of the cylinder, and I'll just connect those. Okay, so I've got the neck. And I figure, okay, well, I'm going to make the head just a little bit larger cylinder. And maybe I'll have this here so you can kind of see what's going on. And so I just made a larger cylinder, just leaving that one about in the center. That's all. And the other oval for the top. Maybe this one was a little bit smaller. So I got a little bit, of a diagonal on that. Okay, cool. And then the arms, okay, so since I could see the inside of this cube, I was able to make an oval here and an oval here. And so that's where I could attach the arms. I made another oval here and another oval here. That's where I could get the ends of the arms. And this time I could just go ahead and connect those. And so they're cylinders, but they're just curved cylinders. They're made in exactly the same way. Okay, so now I could draw the hands. And by drawing the cylinders through, I have an advantage, just in the same way that by drawing the cube through, so I could see the back of the cube, I had an advantage, so I could actually see some things. Okay, so here, I could put a hand right here, and I just used a simple sort of horseshoe shape for the hands. Okay, so here and here. So there was my little horseshoe shape. And I can say like, okay, well, I'm just going to extend that out, making that shape into a form, or at least a form structure, by just extending that out. You could imagine how that might work. Here and here. So I got a shape out of that, or turned that into a more of a form, I should say. And then same thing here and here. Okay. And in this way, I've got one that's going forward and one that's going back. Okay. So now I can start getting rid of some of the lines that I don't need. So I'll make this arm going back. So I'll get rid of that part of the oval that I'd made. And this arm is going to be coming forward. So I'll get rid of the little part of the oval that has been covered up by the hand. There you go. Okay, and I can do a little bit more erasing here. So what else do I need? Well, I don't need all this anymore. And, hopefully I've drawn nice and light, so it's really easy to erase. Okay, but I've got a nice cylinder up here. Let me see, I don't need this part in the neck anymore. So I can see that I've just got this part here. That's where the neck is. I've got that from that cylinder that I drew. I don't need all this inside of this cube anymore. So first off, I'll get rid of the stuff up here that I used for finding the center with. And I can get rid of this stuff over here. All this stuff. And, you know, for the sake of this tutorial, I even drew it a little bit darker than I normally would. You know, usually it would be light, kind of light like it was when you might have first seen it, right, as I was preparing for the tutorial. Okay, I don't need this part in this arm anymore, so we'll get rid of that. And the lighter I make it, the easier it is to erase. Okay, but you can see how this is coming out. And I've got all my things pretty good, and everything is lining up really nice, you know. Because I showed the hidden sides in here, I was able to really find things and where they'd go. All right, and we can really sort of solidify this right here. That's looking good. This one here. Okay, that's fine. Using sort of my medium lines right now. Okay, and these guys right here, I don't need this part of the oval, right? That made that up, so I can get rid of that. But those cylinders are in just the right place, I know, because I set them up in here, all geometrically. So I know that all these lessons that I'm doing now are preparing you for actual observational drawing, but hopefully you're seeing that how even in whatever imaginative drawing that you do, this is all strong techniques to show you how to do that. Okay, and what's left, we'll just sort of emphasize these lines a little bit more so that that makes sense. Make everything nice and clear. Okay, good enough, good enough. Okay, so that's my basic little robot structure, right? Looks pretty good. Okay, so now the light. So now I just had my light coming from the side and down. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and say like, okay, this part here is where the light is catching, right off the side here. And the light's coming down this way. And in the future, you know, I don't know as I'd need to draw light rays, but I want you to for now, because I really want to clarify the concept. So it's coming down here, and this is where the direction of it is. So light's just coming from the side. And so here's this oval here. I know if I was to draw an oval about that same size, right there, that's where the shadow of the head would be. Okay, and so then I've got the oval here for the bottom, right? And so I say like, okay, this is coming off of here, same direction, all parallel, right? It's going to the same place on that same horizontal line. And I say like, okay, well, what's that oval all about? It's a little bit bigger, starts right over here, ends over here. And so I can have this other bigger oval, that's also part. And if I just connect those two, that's making the shadow for the head. And the head takes up most of it. I think that the way I've drawn it, the head is actually larger than the cube that makes up the body. So that's no big deal. So let's see here. That would be somewhere down in here, right? This would be, you could find it, but I don't think you need to. And then here, you know, you'd have the shadow coming off of here. So same sort of thing. Here's the light rays for this, right? And as that's coming down, it's going to hit here. So that means that this is all in shadow as well, right? It all gets covered up. Okay, so that shadow was actually really easy. Now, you'll notice here that I've got a shadow on the leg, and that's a nice little touch right there to see how that shadow would fall on the leg. How did I figure that out? Well, I just figured, okay, so if I've got the shadow coming here, light's coming this way, comes off the corner of this cube, right? And then, I can still kind of see where the cube was on the other side, and I say like, okay, the light's going to come in this way. Come on, baby. There it is. And so we've got this light coming in here, right? I can figure, okay, well, anywhere along that plane is where the light's going to be hitting, and where the light's, or I should say, where the shadow's going to be hitting. And whereas left is where the light's going to be. So I can say like, okay, well, this is hitting right here. This is where this intersects, right? So I can just come across here, and then I can just come up here and figure like, okay, well, if this was a plane, where would it be hitting here? And it'd be hitting right up about here. So if this was a solid object instead of just light, right, it'd be going through here. So that's where your shadow would be. I know that might be a little confusing. It's hard to explain exactly, but if you just figure it, that if that was instead of light, a piece of paper or a board or something that was dissecting this guy, where would it be? And it would act in the same way, as the light would and the shadow would. Okay, anyways, hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but in any case, I know that that is where my light would end up for my shadow. Okay. All right, so for the purposes of this drawing, I want you to leave those light rays in, maybe even neaten them up a little bit. Okay, so let's see here. Maybe a couple little eyes on my robot. All righty. And a little smile, because just, why not? There's my little smile on my little robot. And here we go. Maybe for the inside of the mouth a little bit. And so I think we'll go like that. That's better. And start to shade, right? Okay. So I've got this coming out this way, right? Here is where the center of this is. Here's where the center of this is. So I know that where that dissects, right? Remember that other one? That's going to be right there. That is going to be where the edge is on that shadow, right? Okay, remember the cylinder that we've done before. It all works the same. So I can start to shade a little bit. So I'll make my core shadow right in here. And just bring that around to the edge. And then it's going to get a little bit lighter as it comes down over here to where that intersection was. Okay. And I'll just go ahead and use my finger to soften that up a little bit. That'll be just fine. Okay, maybe even erasing away a little bit of that. I totally lost my eyes. That's okay. Yeah, but let's just get it light over here. Okay, all good. And maybe even a little bit darker there. We'll come back and we'll put some details in any place that we don't like. Okay, the top would stay pretty light, wouldn't it? So we'll just pretty much leave that one alone. And I'll redraw some of my details in there that I lost. Okay, and I think I'll go ahead and even put a little bit of shading into these guys here to make them a little bit more three-dimensional. Okay. Okay. Now the neck would be totally in shadow, covered up by that whole head right there. And I believe that most of this would be in shadow. I think maybe if I was to come here, I would see that maybe there's a little bit of this square that is not, maybe just the corner right there. So we'll shade in most of this guy right here. See, the important thing is not that you draw an exact copy of my robot. The important thing is that you get the concepts so that when you're drawing your own thing, you can kind of just understand why and how things work so that you can make your own things and make your own decisions. Okay, and so even though this is in shadow, I'll still give it a little bit of differentiation, a little bit of a gradient, because otherwise you won't really see how that neck comes around here. Okay. Okay, and so then this side here, this would be darker here, wouldn't it? Because it's in the shadow. And this side over here, now it's not totally in shadow, but it's not having light hitting on it directly. So I'm going to go ahead and shade that in a bit. Okay. These guys down here, they are in shadow, aren't they? So I'll go ahead and get that. And just like with the neck, even though this is totally in shadow, it's still going to have reflective light all around it. So we'll still make lighter and darker areas of shading to create the form. It's just that all those lighter and darker areas of shading will be, well, darker because they're in shadow. So remember on that value scale that we made darker values to medium values to lighter values. Well, maybe you only go medium to dark, something that's in the shadows. Maybe something that's in the light, you go more just like medium light to light. You don't go with those darker ones, you know. Okay, but in any case, so we've got this here. And I think we've got a little bit of shading right here. That's where that shadow is. This, of course, would be dark. And in fact, we'll make this really dark on this edge because there'd be less and less light. Both it's on the shadow side and it's in the shadow. And what's more is we want to create contrast. We want to differentiate one thing from another. So by making that really dark in there, we're going to differentiate the one foot from the other foot. Okay. So here and here. here. And once again here, making this a bit darker. Okay, and then it would cast this shadow. There would be a shadow in between these 2 feet right here. I'll just give that a little bit stronger outline. You know, I said before, life doesn't come with outlines, but illustration can a little bit, because that outline will really help to just separate one thing from another at times. But be careful with it. I mean, if you really want to draw photographically, really realistic stuff, you're not going to have much in the way of outlines with that. Okay, a little bit stronger, even like sub shadow from these legs right here. Darken that up a little bit. Okay, and then of course it's going to have this cast shadow here. So we'll make it darkest right here at the base. And we'll allow it to get a little bit lighter as it goes away. And we're just following those guidelines that we had laid out before, where light is hitting things. Certainly don't want a strong outline on the shadow. That will really break the illusion. Okay, looking pretty good. Now here, this arm is going to be in shadow for the most part. You can see where it would come out, start being outside the shadow long about here, right? Because these are your light lines coming off the head. So probably somewhere around here is where you're starting to get this back into the light. So everything under here would be in shadow. And you just think about things logically. Boy, if it's one thing, just remember, always come back to it. Light goes in a straight line, so it's really easy to predict. You just got to think about things logically. Okay, this side here is going to be in shadow. And there we go. So I've shown you the basics of putting this guy together. You know, I could finish it up a little bit, smooth everything out, making it all good. But anyways, if I was to continue to work on it, hopefully I'd get something a whole lot like this guy right here. But once again, maybe yours doesn't look anything at all like this. But what I want is I want the title, Drawing 10, combining forms to make angular things, in other words, geometric things. I want you to show the light, and I want you to do a nice, neat job showing the shading and the shadows.